So,
Cutscene Convos, episode 5.
yes.
I cannot wait for the first week where I get that wrong.
It'll probably happen once we pass like the 10 threshold of it.
Yeah, 10 to 20. I'm going to go 13, and it's going to be like 14 or 12 or something. I'm going to go, shit. But no, it's 5 this week.
It's going to progressively get worse the longer.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It might get to a point where if I'm really desperate to keep it going, I'll jot it down on my notes like during the week so that I know what to say at the beginning.
Would be the smart idea to do, actually.
No, but I also like the mental challenge of trying to remember.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible.
Okay, so we've had, in the grand scheme of the world, a relatively slow week.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's also given us a chance to think about what we're going to do with these episodes on the slow weeks.
Yes.
Which, hopefully, gives us a better idea of how long these episodes should be in the slow times. Because, if we would have started this during the early stages of the pandemic, we'd have had naffle to talk about.
Yeah, we would have.
Because there was nothing going on. Yeah. If we would have already been like 13 episodes deep when the pandemic hit, we'd have been in big trouble.
Yeah, I don't really know how we would have.
It would have been a case of doing it every 2 weeks and living hard on the comic side of everything, I reckon.
Yeah, and I guess just kind of finding whatever we can.
Oh yeah, it would have been 40 minutes of us just sitting here going, I miss the cinema and I miss comic book shows and
can production start?
But we're still on the Batman hype train. That's the next big thing to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Last couple of weeks we've done some Moon Knight character profiles. I'm gonna, from now until the Batman film, we're gonna do some profiles on some Batman characters.
Give DC some
yeah, don't get me wrong. A lot of people listening to this will probably recognise these characters a lot more than what you've recognised so far. But hopefully it will just maybe you'll find something about the character you didn't know.
Yeah, and so also just kind of flesh them out a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So this week we're starting with the person who is going to be the main antagonist of Batman in the Batman, the Riddler. The first bullet point I've got here is actually something I didn't know as well. So his name is Edward Nygma. I've always thought that Nygma was spelled Nygma, but apparently that's actually the alternate spelling, and originally and normally it's Nigma they use. Oh. I personally prefer Y and will continue to use Y because it doesn't make the joke so on the nose. And again, this is, I'm just going to say it in case anyone doesn't get it. The joke is his initial would be Enigma, as in the Enigma machine, Enigma codes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I prefer the Y, because then it's not spelt the exact same way and it's layers to the joke, I guess.
Yeah.
But so that was something cool I didn't realise. So when the Riddler was originally used as a character, he was quite goofy and just a bit silly. That was kind of perpetuated by the legendary Adam West Batman TV show, where all of the villains were a bit goofy. But the Riddler was really goofy. And then around the time of Frank Miller changing the landscape of Batman with The Dark Knight Returns and making everything a lot darker, they kind of decided they wanted to flesh him out a little bit more. So what they did, which I really love, to try and almost verify how crazy he was make it so he had a compulsion to leave clues and riddles at the scene of his crimes.
Right.
So I believe it's OCD they have him diagnosed with in the comics. And his compulsion manifests in the form of he always feels a need to leave clues and stuff like that for whoever's coming after him to find, and sometimes before he's even committed the crime. It's something he can't stop himself from doing. But the real challenge is because he knows he has to leave something, he makes it super difficult, because obviously he doesn't actually want to get caught. He just has a compulsion to leave a clue. And that's where Batman, being this insanely good detective and so intelligent, gets used, whereas the police are too dumb to understand the Riddler's clues.
Yeah, they look at it the wrong way.
Exactly. So more recently in the comics, this has actually led the Riddler to have quite an honest conversation with Batman and go, maybe I do need to go back to Arkham Asylum. I don't want you to keep catching me, but I can't help leaving these clues. Maybe I am crazy. Which is really, really interesting, and I think we could see a bit of that explored. One of the reasons I love the Riddler so much is because it allows us to see Batman with his brain at the centre stage instead of just his martial arts and his brutality. We really get to see the cogs turning and just the world's greatest detective. We get to see him solving the riddles.
Yeah, you can't really punch your way through a riddle.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, I know the Batman Arkham games made people understand the infuriation of the Riddler of all of his trophies and stuff.
Don't
Exactly.
start me on those.
Everyone who played them games knows the pain of a Riddler riddle that you couldn't work out or something, and that's like him beautifully in a nutshell. But they've also explored his compulsion even more. So a lot of people seem to think, and I think this has been fleshed out a lot more in more recent comics, is his compulsion to leave clues and stuff is an extension of his compulsion to be honest, which came from his father beating him when he thought he was lying. So his father would beat him up if he thought he was lying, which essentially beat in a compulsion to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when he's committing crimes, he has this compulsion to leave clues and riddles. But also it helps satisfy his superiority complex, where he has to believe he's smarter than everyone. And that I think that's a real important part of the Riddler, because if you take out his genuine belief that he is better and smarter than everyone, what you've actually got is just a sad person who needs help.
Yeah, and it's also if you take out the whole like him needing to be smarter, he's not going to leave riddles, is he? He's not going to try and fool them while also telling them how to catch him.
Exactly. If they were to take out this desire to be more intelligent, what you would essentially have is someone who starts off as a villain but becomes Batman's sidekick or something, which is what essentially Tim Drake did. He was really intelligent. He showed Batman his intelligence. So Batman took him on as Robin.
Yeah, you just end up with the Riddler just handing himself over.
Exactly. But he's a really, really interesting character. I really hope with his appearance in this film, we're not going to see the same style of the Riddler we've seen on TV and film before. He's not going to be this goofy, over-the-top guy a la Jim Carrey. He's going to be a dark serial killer who feels like he's on a almost holy mission, I think. But I really hope they don't ignore the mental illness side of it.
Yeah, because the only experience that, other than like the games, kind of my only other kind of strong experience of the Riddler is through the Gotham series.
Yes.
And even then, that was like early stage Riddler, because obviously all those characters are not there.
But I think based on the more recent comics and depictions of Riddler in comics, I think the Gotham's depiction of him is actually phenomenal.
Yeah, I do remember it being really good.
Yeah, like I know people do have issues with Gotham, but I think a lot of parts of Gotham actually would make a lot of Batman content better.
Yeah, if they took certain like characteristics.
But that's all I've got to say on the Riddler. If anyone does want to learn more about the Riddler, or they just like the sound of him and they'd like to read some stuff about the Riddler, there is a comic book that I have handpicked, linked down below, which I think could be a nice way for you to get to grips with the character before the Batman comes out. So have a look, see if it's something you want.
Yeah, I think especially with this Batman coming out and Riddler being a big part of it.
Exactly.
That's kind of like the strong focus of if you want to catch up on stuff.
And up next, I gave myself lots of research to do after last week's episode, but it's been some very interesting reading. So we discussed last week how Secret Invasion has now started filming.
And people were spotted in, is it Leeds?
I believe so. Yeah, it was a slightly more northern town, closer to your neck of the fields than mine for sure.
The true end of the country.
I mean, Batman was filmed in Manchester for large parts.
Because it's the best place, honestly.
Just because it's a gothic, depressing looking place, more likely. But
it's great for
I
henchmen.
So I said Marvel had a number of events with secret in the title, Secret War, Secret Invasion, stuff like that. So I wanted to just do a bit of research to make sure I didn't give you guys the wrong information. I don't want to go into it too much because I feel like the TV show of Secret Invasion could be quite different. But it'll give you a bit of a flavour of potentially what's to be expected. So the Secret Invasion was a comic book crossover event that was the culmination of like 2 or 3 years worth of comics leading up to it, including like the first Civil War book, which I've recently bought. So I do plan on reading all my way up to that event over time. And I'll probably listen back to this and go, wow, Connor, you got a lot of things half right, but we move. And what happened was at the end of the Kree and Skrulls War, so if anyone watched Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you're introduced to the Kree in that, the blue guys, that help their blood created in humans. And then you have the Skrulls who were introduced into Captain Marvel. They were having a big war in space. That war ended. And it changed the power in the Skrulls' ranks, I guess. So what they did was, because they believe the Earth is rightfully theirs in like almost a religious way, they started replacing superheroes with super Skrulls. Now, to my understanding, super Skrulls are just like normal Skrulls in the sense of they can make themselves look like anyone, but they can also mimic their superpowers, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, would allow them to go undetected for longer.
Yeah.
And then what they did was, as they were replacing the superheroes and people of power, what they did was they then used this to essentially destabilize Earth's defenses by starting miniature conflicts in between different parties that would defend Earth. And then they used this to launch a full-scale attack.
Interesting.
And then over the course of the mini-series that was Secret Invasion, what you realised was how long certain characters had been like
Replaced.
not who you thought they were. And actually, I believe it was used to actually retcon some things that fans didn't like in certain comics as well. Like certain decisions characters made that people didn't agree with. They kind of use that to retcon them decisions.
Right.
So the reason that I'm not going too much more into this is because in the MCU, the Skrulls are friendly. We were made to think they were evil during parts of Captain Marvel, but it actually ends up they were almost like victims, and that they were that was set in the early 90s, and they've been living on Earth for, in the MCU timeline, 35-ish years, not causing any problems. So there's a real kind of, are we going to claim the Skrulls have been playing the super long game, and actually them appearing very nice and friendly all the way back in Captain Marvel was them just literally playing friendly, which I think could make Captain Marvel seem like a worse film, because the whole cruxing point of them helping out the poor innocent aliens, then it gets ruined a little bit, gets muddied a little bit. Or do they go, the Skrulls that we have here on Earth for the most part are friendly, but a couple of them have been contacted by other Skrulls and have been slowly working to stabilise? Or is it going to be completely different altogether? Is it going to be like a Civil War style event where some of Earth's heroes find out that there are people living among us who are essentially stealing people's faces, and they're not happy about it?
I wonder, because like the tease towards this film that we've had is the whole Nick Fury and Mariah Hill who we thought were the right people then weren't and were Skrulls, right? And then everyone was trying to figure out how long that's been going on.
Just one thing quickly. I'm sure it's just a slip of the tongue. You called it a film. It is a Disney Plus TV show. Don't want to confuse people.
Yeah, sorry. Sure.
No, it's absolutely fine. But yeah, no. So we found out, what was it, in Far From Home, not No Way Home, Far From Home, that they were Skrulls.
That was it.
And that left a lot of people going, how long has that been the case?
Which kind of leans into the whole comic thing of like, people that didn't realise how long they've been changed.
Exactly.
I wonder if the Skrulls that we saw in Captain Marvel was all true to a thing, like they were refugees, like they were kind of the last after, like there's been a war going on, and like they're the few that have kind of escaped. And I wonder if there'll be a situation of another faction of Skrulls kind of come along and like, no, we want Earth. And then there's this kind of conflict of the ones helping Earth or have been friendly to Earth are then in a kind of inter-Skrull war.
Yeah.
There's this fight for Earth, and there's some helping others, some not, and then stuff's going to get confusing.
I completely agree. I think that's probably what we're going to get. I think it's going to be a case of we're going to have some Skrulls who are very thankful to Earth and to S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.W.O.R.D. and therefore don't want all humans to be killed. There are going to be some who just default to, these are my people, I'm on their side always. And it will get confusing because there'll be distrust about what Skrulls you can and can't trust, and that person, they can take my face if they want, so how can we really trust them? But so we know we have Maria Hill and Nick Fury in it.
Emilia
I don't
Clarke
know.
has been spotted.
Okay.
So the few production, like the photos that came out of production starting, there is a photo of Emilia Clarke with Kobe Smulders.
Okay.
And then, like, in a filming of a shot, so their characters are obviously maybe friendly in some way, but I know there's Emilia Clarke, and then other than that, I don't really know. I haven't seen anything else.
I've just grabbed the cast list, and the only person on it, and again, Google cast list this early in production can't necessarily be trusted. The only person on this cast list who, to my knowledge, is already playing a Marvel superhero is Teyonah Parris, who played Monica Rambeau in WandaVision.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I know she was a big part of the Secret Invasion event, but if she's the only superhero in this show, it really makes me think about what kind of story they're trying to tell.
I doubt she's the only superhero. Maybe she will be, but I'm wondering if maybe Captain Marvel shows up in it. It would kind of make sense.
It's just the way they've set a lot of things up so far. While this is definitely and obviously named and inspired by the Secret Invasion comic book event, I do think we're going to see something quite different. And I'm just curious to see how it plays out. But yeah, so there you go. You know a little bit more about what it's based on, but we're sitting here going, it's probably nothing going to be like that. So take what you like.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the one thing I hope is maybe there is some other MCU characters that we've not even had an inkling of turn out to be a Skrull. I'd love if it's just like some big twist where someone has been a Skrull for ages.
Imagine just huge big brain moment right here. Imagine if Tony didn't actually die, but it was a Super Skrull who snapped for him.
No. What if Jimmy Woo is a Skrull?
No, don't even. Don't.
And that's why he's at all these things regarding superheroes and different things, is because he's a Skrull. That would be a pretty interesting twist.
It'd be up there, that's for sure. So I think what we're moving on to next, I don't actually know if we mentioned it on the podcast last week or if I mentioned it after we stopped recording. But anyway, obviously last week we did a little thought exercise about what kind of characters we'd like to see get films.
Mm-hmm.
This week, in a similar kind of vein, it's what character would we like to play on the big screen given the opportunity. So I've got 3 options here with a little bit of rationale behind each.
I have like 4. I went 2 heroes, 2 villains.
Cool. I've got one for you as well.
Okay.
Who I'm not sure if you'll know of the character. But
I say don't say what you've got for me to see if I've picked it just by chance.
Yeah. If you have picked them, I'll be surprised. But yeah, no, I agree. So since you've got one more than me, do you want to go first and we'll alternate?
Sure. So I'll start with villains. Now, way back before the podcast started, we did our like top 10 villains, and I had Bane as my number 1, and I fell in love with Bane as a villain from both of the games, and then also the Bane that was in Dark Knight Rises. So I would love to play Bane and just be like, I'd love to play like a juiced up version of Bane rather than the Dark Knight one, just because I think it'd be sick to be absolutely juiced up, just beating the shit out of Batman.
Okay. So my first character that I would love to play is Jason Todd's Red Hood.
Okay.
That obviously, like, don't get me wrong, I feel like this is probably one of them characters out there that a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to play that. And I'm sure some of them probably think they're quite niche in thinking. I'm very well aware there are a lot of people who'd love to play this character. I just think there's a lot of fun to be had here. You can't, like, I don't think any sane person with acting experience or not could turn down a role as part of the Bat family anyway. Mm-hmm. But that kind of, is he a killer? Isn't he a killer? Can he be trusted? Is he just still trying to find a way to kill Batman for not avenging him? Is the second he sees Joker, he just going to kill Joker? Kind of internal battle. I would really love, despite not being even remotely trained as an actor, is something I'd love to try and work with a director on to really create a psychological thriller type deal. And also sick fucking costume that I would love to wear. Yeah, it'd be sick. I'm telling you now, if somehow I got offered this role, I'm stealing one of the helmets. It's happening.
Well, of course. You've got to take something.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll do my other villain. And this villain's more kind of for balance and kind of just for like going off my height and actually what I think is a maybe realistic villain, which is Juggernaut. Because he's huge and just an absolute tank.
Yeah.
Just like all I picture from Juggernaut is him smashing through multiple walls and just being like with the huge helmet thing he has on.
So
I'm gonna be a fun villain.
I'm gonna throw it out there now.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to love the character I think I would cast you as, and I'm 90% sure you haven't chosen them for yourself. But based on the characters you've already chosen, once you read up about this character, you're going to be like, fuck yes, I'm in. But also, I'm fully down to shave my head and go Professor X, and then you can be Juggernaut. I'm all in.
Yeah, see, we'll come back to my heroes after, but...
So, next up for me is a villain.
Okay.
But it's weird, because I've written down specifically here, voice of, because I can't play... So it's Carnage.
Okay.
And to me, they are... I don't know why them Cletus Cassidy having his red hair and Carnage being red is quite important. I wouldn't want to play Cletus Cassidy. I would love to just do the voice of Carnage. I'd be willing to do the voice of Cletus Cassidy and Carnage if it was like an animated film.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to work with a vocal coach. I can do some quite gravelly, demon-y voices anyway. So if I could sit with a vocal coach and like work out something for Carnage, I think that could be a lot of fun. And also to just be able to go, I voiced Carnage would be a childhood dream of mine. So I'm again all in. Send me the contract, Marvel.
Yeah, I didn't even think of doing like voices of like for characters that you don't need to actually be. I didn't consider that. Going hero wise, so at this point, I'm like fully. Most of my ideas are actually more based on what I think I could fit visually, as well as would also enjoy playing. Now, I'm going to be real. I'm not shaving my beard, so that kind of limits me on who. So obviously, I'm going to pick Thor. I'd love to play Thor. And also, like, the whole Norse kind of Viking look. I just dig.
Obviously, people on the podcast haven't seen you yet, other than people we know in real life who've met you. Hori is, like, what are you, 6'2", 6'3"?
6'3/4.
He's a big boy. He's got nice, big, broad shoulders. If he was getting that Marvel money, he could live in a gym. He would make Chris Hemsworth look small given the time. He's a unit of a human being who could definitely play a version of Thor.
Oh, yeah, and like, I think I'd like to do more like maybe Endgame Thor, where he's got the axe. Stormbringer.
Oh, Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker, not Stormbringer. Like, because I feel like by Endgame, he's kind of a bit more kind of Viking looking, kind of rougher sort of Thor.
The braids in his beard and stuff are very, very cool. Okay, so the next one for me is, ironically, the only real issue I would have with it is the voice.
Okay.
It's Gambit from the X-Men.
Oh.
He has, like, quite a strange accent.
Yeah.
And I don't think even with the best vocal coaches in the world, I would be able to consistently learn and pull off that accent. But I would love, love, love to see if it was possible. But Gambit is...
Do your own accent?
From the X-Men animated show, which is obviously being revamped or rebooted or whatever by Disney Plus soon. That was probably the first superhero show I watched. I might have been watching the Spider-Man cartoon alongside it, but I fell in love with Gambit in that. The animation style didn't hurt, don't get me wrong, but the big trench coat and like slightly longer hair and the holding the playing cards and lighting them up and flicking them. I know Channing Tatum's heartbroken that he lost out on the role, as are I'm sure women everywhere. But if they want to reboot Gambit and get me in, I'll work really hard, honest. But
I can 100% see you in like the full trench coat.
Pull it off. Yeah. Give me my big old staff, give me my deck of cards, and give me a vocal coach who can teach me that voice. Because he is such a cool character who it's criminal we've not seen a good version of him in live action yet. And if the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't do him justice, I'll be heartbroken.
I'm hopeful they do. I'm hopeful that MCU, like the Marvel writers and all that, Disney and everything, can kind of finally give X-Men a bit of new life. But my last kind of thought and hero, I was, because sticking with the beard thing and kind of, I was trying to now also like think of characters we haven't had yet, so I'm not competing against what people already visually think of. And that was Hercules.
Oh my god. Wow. That's fucking crazy. That's literally why I picked out you.
See, this is why I said don't say it because I wasn't sure. Like, I was like, Hercules is a bit of an obscure one. Maybe he has picked that.
Yeah. I definitely, if it was my movie, I'd cast you as Hercules 100%. You'd have to trim the beard up a touch.
Oh, yeah.
But, like,
off, though.
yeah, no, I could 100%
Get juiced.
Because Hercules is also quite, like, playful. And I think you could really have fun with that. But, you know, Hercules is exactly who I was thinking of.
So, there we go. Great minds.
Oh, that really made me laugh that you saved him to last, and that's who I was thinking of.
Just, honestly, we're just clearly on the same wavelength.
Honestly, like, obviously, like I said, we tried to be very welcoming to all here. And I don't think you'd be offended with me saying I'm more adept in the comics than yourself.
Oh, 100%.
I didn't think you'd pick Hercules.
It took Googling. Do you want to know? Right. I got the first, like, 3, and I was like, because I thought of 4, and I was like, what other heroes are there with beards? Like, heroes and villains. And I was going through, and then I was like on a few different, like, threads and of, like, lists and stuff, Hercules kept showing up, and I was like, maybe I'll go with Hercules. Sure, why not? It's more obscure. I don't know a hell of a lot about him. Obviously, I know he's somewhat similar to actual Hercules in a way, but not.
So, again, I don't know a lot about him. I know bits and pieces about him. As far as I'm aware, he's part of the Eternals in the comic books.
Okay.
And as we obviously saw in the Eternals film, again, very minor spoilers if you haven't seen it, their names are obviously when they were writing the comics, they've named the characters kind of after old gods. And then the whole theme in Eternals is they were there throughout all them time and people thought they were the gods. Like Angelina Jolie's character Thena became known as Athena by the Greek people. Stuff like that. So I believe Hercules is a kind of similar deal to that in the comics.
Wow. Perfect then.
But yeah, no, I definitely could see you playing Hercules. I'm trying to think what other villain I could give a good shot. I reckon I could do a good Riddler. Yeah, I wouldn't have to get Jack to play Riddler. I'd have to lose a little bit of I'd have to lose a bit of gut because he's a slightly scrawnier guy. But I reckon I kind of have the voice of someone who thinks they're better than everyone. I reckon I could do a decent Riddler.
And also, you get to wear a trench coat and stuff again if you want. If you want to go, the Batman Riddler.
I'd really like to go for like the
full green suit,
the green suit with like the black question mark pattern and the bowler hat. I'm a fan of it. It does look good. I'd love a properly tailored one of them just to see how good I could make it look.
I think that could be cool because you could do kind of like the comic book outfit that everyone knows, but make it, I guess, a bit more tasteful and not quite as in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it'd be cool.
But yeah, no, this was a fun activity that I spent a fair bit of time like thinking about. Because I mean, let's be honest, anyone who's listening to this podcast at some point during their life, be it childhood or more recently, has dreamed of being a superhero.
Yeah, I think everyone has at least some point thought about being Spider-Man or Iron Man or Batman.
Yeah, we've skipped off the obvious answers of a Spider-Man or someone here. I'd love to give the Flash or Reverse Flash a go again, but anyone who knows me knows that's a pretty obvious answer. But I really do like these picks for both of us. I think these are picks that if they were to give us a chance, I definitely think we could work with.
Yeah, just get me in like a 4 multiverse one. It's like a variant.
Yeah, exactly.
And sorted, aren't we?
that would have been a really cool thing for them to do for a Multiverse of Madness.
Get like almost lookalikes.
Get like fans who think they could play a character to send in tapes, and the ones that they thought could kind of pull it off, get them in as variants. That'd have been kind of cool. If you're listening and you've loved hearing us be proper nerdy, like really childish nerdy for the first time since we started doing these, let us know who you'd want to be if you're a superhero on the big screen down below. What superhero do you think you could play better than anyone else?
Or villain.
Or villain, yeah. Side character. If there's a slightly older person listening who's like, I could be the best Alfred, let us know.
I was just about to say I could be Alfred.
If I get to like the age of 60 and someone's like, you know what, you've aged in a really interesting way. Do you want to come be the new Alfred? I'm there. instant. They might not even have to pay me, depending on what the situation is. 60-year-old Connor, who's a little bit older and still very British, would 100% go and be Alfred for free. But once again, I would steal one of his butler suits.
Oh yeah, you've got to take something off.
Oh, for sure. So now we're on to the bit where it's just like anything we've seen since we had a discussion about the running order.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I saw, which kind of broke because I was leaving work at 5 o'clock by the looks of it, so I won't be surprised if you haven't seen it, is apparently Sony have announced yet another Spider-Man spin-off film.
Oh, I hadn't seen this, no.
With Dakota Johnson playing Madam Webb.
Ooh.
So, obviously, she's very young to be playing Madam Webb. And Madam Webb is kind of like an old lady who's doesn't really stand up or directly fight anyone or do anything of real interest other than be like a side character. So I don't know how this film's going to work. I hate to be negative off the rip of like 4 hours later after an announcement, but gut feeling straight away without knowing too many details is I'm nervous.
Yeah, I've just Googled it to see what the actress looks like because I couldn't.
Dakota Johnson, she played the girl in 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, now I've seen a picture of her. I recognize her. But yeah, it doesn't seem like they've got any details on it other than who she's going to play.
I'll be completely honest, all of my knowledge of Madam Web comes from the absolutely goated Spider-Man animated series from the early noughties and late 90s that I watched. So maybe there's stuff in the comics that they can do that will make this film make sense. But my just gut feeling instantly is, just as it was with Morbius. Don't get me wrong, Morbius might come out, I might get proven to be a massive idiot, and then I'll probably have a lot more faith in this. But I'm always nervous of them trying to spin off all these Spider-Man characters while not having Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm reading something here, and it's like Madam Web apparently didn't fight any villains.
Yeah, at times she was a helper of Spider-Man, and at times she was an antagonist of Spider-Man. So I'm really curious as to what they're trying to do here.
People are just saying that this project could go anywhere. No one really knows.
It could just be a case of they're putting a film together and wanted to throw a name people would recognise onto it, maybe.
Possibly.
But yeah, like I said, that's just come out. We know basically nothing right now. So we'll discuss it more, I'm sure, over the coming weeks as more information surfaces.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Do you have anything that you need us to discuss, my friend?
No, I haven't come across anything. I did even check to see if Black Panther had begun production again, but as far as I could find, no news on that.
No news on that.
So that's our weekly Black Panther update.
There we go. That is the weekly Black Panther update.
Other than that, I haven't seen. Now, this is, I suppose, one slight thing that I just want, like, because obviously I know you haven't caught up yet. And this is mainly focused on Marvel and DC and comics and stuff. But
okay, so you want to talk a bit of Star Wars?
I have to say, this week's episode of Star Wars might actually be my favourite thing from Star Wars in years. And you need to hurry up and catch up if you've not.
Yeah. So I tried to watch it when I got in from work, but the internet was being a bit shoddy, so I didn't get around to doing that. I am planning on catching up over the next couple of days. I believe the big moment from this week's episode might have been spoiled for me by TikTok. I'm not going to say what it is because A, I don't know if it's true, and I don't want anyone in the same situation as me to
we won't
have it spoiled for them.
We won't touch any spoilers here, but
I was, if I want it to not be true so that it's not been spoiled, but at the same time, if I do get all the way there and then that hasn't happened, I'm going to be heartbroken because it looked very cool. But yeah, I need to catch up. It's just one of them things. I've been so busy at the minute, and when it gets to a Wednesday and a new episode of Boba Fett's out, it's a case of, okay, do I do the bits I need to get ready for the podcast done, or do I watch an hour of Boba Fett and then definitely forget? But I've watched the first 3 episodes. I've got 3 episodes on there to watch. I will hopefully watch 1 or 2 tonight, and then maybe another one over the weekend to catch myself up.
Yeah, I had to say something.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of good things. I've heard a lot of good things. And hey, if the fans are desperate for more Star Wars stuff, we can. There's no reason we can't include it.
True.
We'll see. And that I mean, beautiful segue into the future of what we want to do with this thing. I know I'm already an elite podcaster. So we created all of the accounts for this, like, what was it, 2 or 3 days before Christmas?
Yeah, it was something like that.
And obviously we posted a couple of things every other day until we knew we were ready to record our first episode. And as we say at the end of every episode, we're on all the platforms, we're doing all that. But we do have quite, I don't want to say comprehensive because it makes it sound like we're almost like a huge company who's got this all planned out to the T. But we've had a fair few discussions as to what we want to do with this. And we kind of want to let the listeners and everyone who, especially our friends and stuff who've been so supportive, know what our plan is with this. So obviously right now we're just audio based. And then every week I take the audio, Hori takes the audio and cuts it up into segments, like the Superhero Showdown and stuff. I then break that up into 1-minute chunks with pictures and stuff put together to go on TikTok and onto YouTube Shorts. So the number one priority for us right now is for me to, right now, I'll tell you what I'm looking at, dear listener. I'm going to paint you a picture. I've got one of the lazy arms that can be attached to my desk, holding up my phone with my notes on it, with my earphones coming out of it, while sitting on a Discord call with Hori, who's recording everything on his side. I'm doing all of this from my mobile phone at the moment, and have been since the beginning.
And
which
sounds not like it sounds perfectly fine and proves that you can start a podcast with just your phone.
Exactly. But we obviously do want to improve the quality of the podcast as well as adding video. So I do have a real world job, which is, as we know, money takes time to acquire. The first big goal and the first time you're going to notice a real upgrade in content is once I get my PC and once that's set up. What that will allow us to do is add video as well as audio to the podcast. That is the next thing you're going to notice of any real difference. Yeah. And that's quite a big thing for us. It's something we're very excited to do. And as a direct result of that, hopefully what that's going to allow us to do is it will allow us to cut stuff up into shorts and TikToks in a greater scale. Because instead of me having to cover every second of audio with a picture, some of it can just be the video that's coming from the podcast, which will, I'm sure you guys can work, and I'm sure some of you might not care, but some of you might like to know what's going on in the background. It will allow us to put more out and get more traffic coming through so that we have more people listening to the actual podcast.
Yeah, it's just more content, and especially with a podcast, which is like long form content, the big thing is not everyone has an hour to sit down and consume a piece of content. Sometimes like the short form content, like the TikToks and the shorts, are really great as well for people that kind of still want to support or still into this sort of stuff and kind of enjoy that content. So it allows, video is just going to allow us to kind of improve that side of things as well.
Exactly. And I know what you're saying. So what, I have to watch 10 1-minute videos a week or 1 hour long. What about everything else? Once we have video, Hori, I don't think we've discussed who's going to do it, but I think we may have broached it, might be you. We'll take each segment like the Superhero Showdown, and over the course of a week, we'll upload all of the segments as 4 to 10 minute or however long they are videos, so that if you don't care about any of the Marvel stuff or the DC stuff, or if you want to avoid spoilers, you can just watch the other bits. If you only care about a particular show or a particular character and maybe the character profiles, you can just go on there and watch them if that's what you want. Or if you want to watch the whole podcast but you only ever have 10 minutes, you can then use them to see everything as you want it.
Also, to add on to that, is like say Moon Knight comes out and you want a refresher on what is Moon Knight, you'd be able, like, the idea of going back and just listening to the character profile rather than having to find the episode and skim through it to try and find the point you want.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. More evergreen content.
Exactly. And also, with that, we will always have in the title of the segments whether there are spoilers for anything in that title, so that when you're clicking on something, you know whether you're going to be safe to listen to all of that or not.
Oh, yeah.
So they are... I don't know if I've missed any, and Hori will tell us now in a minute if I have, but they're all stuff that we're hoping to get enacted within our first year. So we're on episode 5 now. By the time we get to episode 53, probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, at the latest, this, we would hope, is all in place.
Oh, yeah, I would fully expect us to be on to, like, video of some form by the end of the year.
Exactly.
I'd be surprised if we weren't.
But we're going to do everything we can to keep growing this, because if we continue to grow, hopefully there'll be a way of, or some opportunities to make it so that we can get the improvement quicker. But it takes time. But we're not going to stop doing this because there's no video yet. We're not going to shelf it. We shelved it for long enough as it was to start with. So I don't think either of us are desperate to go back. We both have other plans for content we want to do outside of this podcast anyway. But when we were discussing it, we both said we know we're going to be in ebbs and flows of doing external content, but we always want this to be here as a pivot piece, so that we are always making some kind of content.
Yeah, it's just that kind of consistency on, from my side, it's because I do work in esports stuff, and then any of my own content is photography based. This is a nice change of pace for me, so it kind of helps me in a creative sense as well, shifting things up.
But we are also, at the heart of it, massive nerds, massive dreamers. So we do have some more long-term goals and dream goals, if you like. So we haven't discussed these with each other. So there's probably a realistic chance that the long-term goal I've got written down here is also what Ori has. But our first long-term goal for me is to secure our first sponsorship or partnership. Because what that will do is allow us to have a source of income for the podcast that means that we can improve things and support ourselves a bit more, so that maybe we can put more time towards the podcast to just improve it through what's being discussed rather than maybe the video or anything quality.
Yeah, mine's not as specific as sponsor. Mine was more just to monetize the podcast.
Yeah.
And through YouTube or through sponsorships or however else it may look. But yes, basically the same long term.
Exactly. Like, fortunately with YouTube and TikTok, they are pretty clear how you monetize your content. There's metrics you have to hit. We're every day we're moving in the right direction for them. It just takes time. But that will be a huge turning point in what you guys see from this content once that starts to happen.
Oh yeah, like, content creation is never a sprint. It's always like a marathon. So I'm sure I would like to think within a year that we're in a position where our analytics and our numbers and viewers and that is kind of at a point which kind of hopefully means we can monetize stuff. So yeah, fingers crossed for that.
Exactly. And then my dream, while still trying to keep it realistic for this podcast, is that we get to the point where the podcast has enough recognition that we are then invited to do interviews with actors on the Marvel or DC press tours. Because what these companies are very good at is getting YouTubers and non-mainstream media people to interview to spread the word as far and wide as possible. If this podcast continues to improve and get the recognition that we want it to get, there will hopefully come a time where they go, would you guys like to do an interview with so-and-so for the newest film? And that would be a very, very exciting moment.
Do you know what's funny? We have very similar. I've got 2 goals for dream goals that I wrote down.
Oh, Hori's a big dreamer. We always knew this.
Always am. One is, I literally put, get to work with Marvel or DC in any form, whether they sponsor a single episode because there's a new film out, or some sort of a guest star or interview, or like just even if it's just sending us to a premiere. Like, I just put some form of work between Marvel and DC. Then I guess probably in a way even a bit loftier of a dream goal was to get the podcast to the point where we actually are doing this as a video in person on a set sort of podcast.
Oh, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Even if that was only for like every once a month we were at a studio to do this together, that would be absolutely astonishing to me. And I mean, we've both got a lot of drive for this. We've both kind of built our schedules as of now around this.
Mm-hmm.
As our listeners can hear, yes, we discussed the short-term goals, but our long-term goals are very similar despite not discussing them, which hopefully shows that we're not going to have a big dramatic band-esque breakup of, we just have different visions for the podcast going forward.
Just split. And then,
I'll take the cutscene, you can take the convos.
I was going to say, like, one of us leaves and you replace me on the podcast with another bearded person.
It's another guy with a beard.
This isn't the horror that we know. This isn't horizontal.
But while this is our podcast, this podcast is always, in honesty, going to belong to the people listening.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to know what you guys want to see from us.
Yeah, it's like what content we're doing our usual. I was just gonna say, like, at the end of the day, it's like we can nerd out over the films, the shows, like dive into characters and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's what the listener wants as well, and the content they kind of enjoy and want to absorb. So
we can't guarantee that any one suggestion is gonna definitely make it through, but if we see a number of you going, it would actually be really great if you guys could do this, or maybe this could be a cool segment, and we see it and we discuss it and we go, that's actually really good, we hadn't thought of that. I'm sure if you're enjoying the podcast enough that you're making suggestions, that you'll probably feel pretty great going, that was my idea. And of course, if someone suggests a segment that we love, we will recognise that. We're not just going to go, mine now. But also, like Corey said, it's about what you guys want to hear. We're not just going to sit here and waffle ourselves and ignore what the people who've been listening want to hear. So yes, please, in the comments, reviews, the email address, wherever you can shout at us, please shout at us if there's something you want to see. For instance, if you want us to also dive in a little bit to the Star Wars world and just stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's something I mean, we're both huge Star Wars fans. That's something we could definitely consider doing if that's what people wanted.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're nerds, so there's always, if there's stuff, other kind of areas that make sense to this podcast, like Star Wars, like it's obvious, like it's obvious kind of fit to things, stuff like that. Like, yeah, suggest it, we'll read it, we'll see. Yeah.
So I think all that leaves us with this week is the Superhero Showdown.
Yes, our usual segment to end the day on.
So this week's Superhero Showdown has been provided by... See, I'm going to feel like an idiot here because I only know him by his internet name. I'm pretty sure his name's Joe. But he goes on the internet as Jopeman1. He is also posting stuff on YouTube as a gaming content creator. So if you want to watch Warzone stuff, feel free to check him out. He's an absolute gem of a guy. And he wanted to hear us discuss, I believe it was Captain America versus Wolverine.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so this is my first opportunity to broach this subject.
Okay.
There is a thing within the... So I'm pretty sure if we go back to episode 1, I made a comment about how I don't want to hear about Batman with prep time. And you'd never heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
So there is a thing within the community of people who like to pit characters up against each other called power scaling, which is basically the idea of X beats Y and Z beats Y, therefore Z definitely beats X.
Right.
Which, for anyone who's ever watched any sports, knows just because someone beats someone doesn't mean they're gonna. Just because that happens, doesn't mean because you beat a team that hasn't lost all year doesn't mean you're going to beat everyone else. But for some reason, comic book fans seem obsessed with this idea. I do not believe in this whatsoever. I will not be taking it. And the reason I'm broaching that this week is because obviously we had Hulk versus Wolverine last week.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that as we left it up to the fans, and I'm pretty sure Hulk won the vote in the end. But I don't want it to become a case of, we were 50-50 on the Hulk versus Wolverine, and the Hulk definitely beats Captain America, therefore Wolverine must beat the Hulk because he's basically even. Because it's not that simple.
No, it's not.
So, there we go. I've broached that subject now. So, people listening, don't worry about, you've already discussed these characters separately, so that it's just going to be a really quick answer. We're going to take every fight on its merit.
Yeah, every fight is like... We don't take into consideration who they could beat in another fight. Like,
exactly.
Each fight is its own entity.
So, what we have here is we have the man out of time, Captain America, versus the man with all the time in the world, Wolverine. And I'm really proud of myself because I thought of that off the top of my head. That wasn't even on my notes page.
That was very well done.
I'm a wordsmith. What can I say?
Get this one.
So it's interesting because while I'm not sure if it's ever actually discussed in the comics, Wolverine has fought in all major conflicts since like the 1800s. So he fought in World War II. I don't know if he directly fought alongside Captain America at any point. But so what you've got Wolverine with his insane healing power, his adamantium skeleton, and obviously he's quite fast, very strong due to his animal-like instincts. Then you've got Captain America, who is jacked AF from his super soldier serum. He is very fast, very strong. He has his vibranium shield. He's also got a great mind. He is an expert strategician. Is that the right word? We're going to run with it.
I think so.
So whereas Hulk versus Wolverine last week was just brutal, like fight to the death despite the fact neither one of them can die, this is going to be like more of a tactical fight. Because Captain America is smart enough to know if he just goes in swinging like a madman, he's going to get cut to pieces.
Yeah.
So, I think for the sake of keeping this fight easier to comprehend, I think we go comic books for both.
Okay.
Yeah?
I'm with that, yeah.
I think... You know what, let's do this TikTok style-y.
Oh.
Who are we saying is stronger?
I want to say Captain America is stronger.
So do I. I'm racking my brains. I don't think there's actually any evidence to show that Wolverine has strength more than that of just someone who's very
jacked,
fit and strong.
Yeah, like Wolverine's... yes, his bones are strong because of the adamantium. But there's no real, change to his, muscle strength as far as I know.
So, all I could think of to that is the metal bones does make him ridiculously heavy. He'd have to be stronger just to move.
Yeah.
but he would need
there is some like increased strength than your average man, like average person.
Yeah, and also by working out because of his healing factor, he could build muscle quicker. It would stand to reason. But I'm pretty confident in saying that Captain America is stronger in a pure just like punching power sense.
Yeah, I would agree.
Then we'd move on to speed. Again, I mean, for most part, speed is just an extension of strength. It's how fast you can move. Wolverine is fast,
Yeah, and he can leap fast.
I'm still leaning towards Cap, but I think it's even. I'd be happy enough to call it a draw.
Yeah, I'd probably say it's pretty even. I think, in my point of view, is maybe like Wolverine can start quicker, if you get me.
Yeah.
Like it takes Cap a couple, like just a bit of like build up as it does with running.
Do you want to know the best way I think I could put it is Captain America is probably faster, but Wolverine is more agile and has more control over his speed.
I'm for
that. Intelligence, I'm giving to Cap. I don't really think that's much of a debate, especially battle IQ, which is what's more important. Obviously, Captain America doesn't really have powers per se, other than what's already been discussed with his strength and stuff. Whereas Wolverine does have his healing factor and his claws. But Captain America's shield does counter the claws to an extent.
See, yeah, this is something that was like, when obviously we had this as the suggestion and something was running in my head before the podcast is, because vibranium stops a lot of stuff, but does it stop adamantium?
Okay, so you ready? Adamantium, I believe, is a compound of another metal and vibranium.
So does that make it stronger?
I don't think it's any stronger.
Oh, okay.
I think what the compound was for, and again, bigger nerds than me, correct me in the comments, feel free. I believe the compound was actually so that it could bond to Logan's skeleton.
Right.
Because that's, as far as I'm aware, the only real use of adamantium in Marvel.
Yeah, it's just...
So I think it's a kind of a case where it will scratch and dent the shield, but it's not piercing the shield or anything, or breaking the shield.
Right, okay.
I think Captain America is smart enough to fight the battle on his terms. He won't get emotionally drawn into the fight and make a mistake, whereas he will draw Logan into the fight to make a mistake. So I think I want to give it to Captain America.
Yeah, I feel like... And obviously we have the point to state that, like, with Wolverine's ridiculous healing factor, he's technically never killed in a one-on-one fight. It's just,
Captain America
last time, beaten to the point where he can't.
Yeah, Captain America wouldn't try to kill him anyway. He would just subdue him long enough to get him in cuffs or whatever.
I think I'm with you. I think Captain America is smarter. That while one-on-one fight, like Wolverine's gonna they're gonna go at it for a while, but I think Captain America's smarts is gonna mean he gets the upper hand on Wolverine.
Yeah,
and we said, like, the claws don't beat the shield; they're kind of matched. Now I think about it, it's the same as like when like the Black Panther claws, which are vibranium.
Exactly.
They just scratch across the shield. So I think it would take a lot of Captain America's strength in the fight, but his smarts will kind of get to a point where he can subdue and get like past him. I think Wolverine, the longer the fight goes on, he'll just get more kind of animalistic and just like trying to use brute strength, I think.
Yeah,
that'll be where he fails because Cap will just beat him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I think we're unanimously giving this to Cap, but we don't think it's an easy fight by any stretch.
No.
Again,
definitely going to be some cuts and slashes on Cap.
I'll put this on Twitter about an hour or so after the podcast goes live tomorrow, which will be, I guess, any minute now if you're listening to this as it's come out. So that you guys can tell us what you think. But I think from us, it's a pretty resounding Captain America victory. While not being easy, I'm pretty confident that Cap locks it up.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, what other things might happen, but...
It feels wrong going against Wolverine, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it's just, like, because the fact of... At the end of the day, like, Wolverine would just heal and then take the loss, I guess. And just... like, it's one of those things where Cap would beat Wolverine. Obviously, he doesn't kill him, so Wolverine would just heal and then have to accept that he can't beat the Cap.
Exactly.
Which just feels weird to say, but yeah. I do think it's the right answer.
If you disagree, let us know in the comments. We'll always take the engagement. But yeah. So the Spotify polls have been pretty sketchy, so we'll probably take the Twitter poll as the do or die one.
I don't know what they did to it. It worked in like the second episode, and then since then they've broken it. I don't know.
So yeah, go to our Twitter if you want that. Obviously, we are Cutscene Convos on social medias that we're on. The email address, if you have any suggestions for what you want to see from us, any topics you want us to discuss, anything like that, is cutsceneconvos@gmail.com. And sponsorships, yeah. I've just ordered a bunch of energy drinks from a brand who shall remain nameless. But unless they sponsor us, then I'll shout your name out every week. But yeah, so go follow us everywhere so you can keep up to date with what's going on. Thank you so much and have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week.